Ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for being in here tonight. Much appreciated to be here. This forum is done by Prairie Chamber of Commerce. My name is Pt. You can hear me? No. Louder, Jeff.
It's not on.
It is on.
Because I can hear it here.
Yeah, it's on.
Different system.
My name is Pt. and I'm the president of the Chamber of Commerce of the town of High Prairie. And I'd like to welcome the candidates. Much appreciated for all of them to show up in here tonight. We have Danielle and DB, and we have Pat Rain, UCB, and we have Suzette, Broder, Independent Party, and Vince Rain, Alberta Party. Please welcome them and thank them for being here. This forum is put to give the public knowledge about the candidate and their parties. So I'm going to handle the mic to our moderator, Mr. Brandon Latender. Brandon, take over, please.
Well, that was my introduction. I'm just going to start from the beginning. My name is Brandon Latender. I am the moderator for this evening. I'm in no way affiliated with either of these parties tonight. And I'm just going to go over a few rules throughout this meeting here. So one, candidates will be given 10 minutes each for opening remarks to introduce themselves and their parties. Two, after this is completed, we'll accept questions from the floor. We ask that no pre-programmed questions from phones be read out. That basically means freestyle your questions, and we will take the mic. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes maximum to answer any questions. Miss Dunn, she'll be my time person. And we ask that you guys refrain from rude, slanderous comments, anything attacking, and any attacking statements. Basically, just kind of keep that to yourselves. So at 8:40, there will be no more questions, and there will be time for each candidate to answer those questions. And when one question is addressed to one candidate and they have given their response, another candidate may add their remarks for 2 minutes. After that, there will be no rebuttal from the original question. And that's about it.
So we'll start with the first candidate, Danielle, NDB, please. And if you would like over there or over here, it's up to you.
No, I think I'm fine here. So thanks. And good evening, everyone. And it's my pleasure to join all of you here on the traditional territory of Treaty 8, land that the Métis also have a very deep connection with. And I want to thank the High Prairie Chamber, High Prairie Area Chamber of Commerce for hosting this evening's forum. And I also want to thank every single one of you for being here to join all of us this evening. And tonight, I want to focus on the things that really matter. On good jobs, on good schools, on good hospitals, in a more diversified and resilient economy for the families of lesser slave labor. No doubt, our communities have faced some big challenges. The oil price collapse hurt Alberta's entire economy, and it hurt people right here in lesser slave labor. The drop in the price of oil, the huge changes to the global oil and gas economy called on us to do things differently. And from day one, that's what I have worked to do, along with my colleagues. And we have made good progress. Today, Alberta is creating jobs and not shedding them. Our kids are learning in better schools. More patients are getting care close to home. And our economy is more diversified. And the deficit is coming down faster than forecasted, on track to balance with the lowest debt and the best balance sheet in Canada by a country mile. Let me also say that my party is very proud that we've acted with integrity and are honest. And, you know, I certainly would say that when we see RCMP investigations into voter fraud and cheating, that is, in fact, the last thing that Albertans need right now. That doesn't mean that investigation should be stopped by an injunction like some people try to do, but you know, digressing a bit there. But even with the progress that we have made, what I see is that too many of my friends and neighbors are hurting right now. The world economy has been changing quickly, and we need to stay ahead of that curve. And so our job is far from done. I want to be able to build on the work of the last 4 years. I want to create more jobs, to diversify our economy in the energy sector and beyond. And I want to defend the public services that our families depend on. My party's plan to keep us on track to balance the budget by 2023 with the lowest taxes and the lowest debt in Canada. We want to keep government clean, to do more reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, and provide more support to small business. We will take bold action with a vision for our changing energy future. We will keep fighting hard to build a pipeline. That's what Rachel Notley's been doing since day one, and today a strong and growing majority of Canadians support the pipeline that we all own, a pipeline that will get built. But we need to do more to get more jobs and value from the resources that we all own. And so our first campaign commitment is to supercharge Alberta's energy upgrading. Picking up where Premier Peter Lougheed left off, we will stop shipping our jobs to Texas and keep them here in Alberta, turning our raw energy into the products that the world needs and getting the best value for Alberta's resources. Our plan will attract 70,000 new jobs and $75 billion in private sector investment over the next 10 years. We're also taking action to improve, not to privatize, and certainly not to make drastic cuts to our healthcare system. Having worked as a registered nurse in the area for almost 20 years, I know that strong public healthcare available to everyone best reflects who we are as Albertans and the obligations that we have to each other. We fought hard to defend healthcare through the oil price downturn and to expand healthcare services to Indigenous communities that previous governments ignored for decades. And I will continue to fight for healthcare now and through the recovery. Our plan continues to provide healthcare providers with stable, predictable funding and targets new resources to reducing surgical and emergency wait times. We are also taking action to strengthen our economy by making it easier for parents, particularly women, to enter the workforce. Supporting families through the recession has been a top priority for our team from the beginning. And even as we went through a downturn, as tough as things were, we cut child poverty in half. Child poverty in Alberta is the lowest in the country, and that is something that all Albertans can and should be proud of. It says a lot about the character of this province. Our plan builds on that progress, supporting families with the expansion of $25 a day childcare to every child space in the province. We are also creating 13,000 new childcare spaces to meet growing demand. As the minister responsible for childcare in this province, I've personally seen what it means to families across this riding and across Alberta, so I'm incredibly excited about this commitment. We're also making sure that our kids get the best education possible and that Albertans can upgrade their skills. So our plan builds 70 new schools, hires new teachers and support staff, and modernizes our curriculum. It also makes high school upgrading tuition free so that Albertans can get the skills that they need in a changing economy. My priority is, and always has been, the people of Lesser Slave Lake, the people that I have called friends and neighbors for 40 years, and I will always fight for everyday Albertans. For good jobs and a more diversified economy, for good hospitals, good schools, and affordable childcare. We are on track to balance the budget with the lowest debt, the lowest taxes, and the best balance sheet in the country. Now let me say the plan I'm outlining today is much different than the one released last week by Mr. Kenney and promoted by his friend here, Mr. Rinn. Jason Kenney's plan starts with a $4.5 billion tax cut to profitable banks and corporations, the biggest corporate tax cut in history, despite the fact that we already have the lowest taxes in the country overall. This tax giveaway is Mr. Kenney's biggest spending priority, and that spending priority is not for you or me or everyday Albertans who just want to do better for their families. Instead, under Kenney's plan, the rich will get richer and the poor will get poorer, and the middle class will continue to get squeezed. By Mr. Kenney's own math, this corporate tax cut doesn't result in any growth, any new investment, or any new jobs for at least 2 years, if ever. It is simply a big spend on the wrong priority. When we should be investing in people and innovation, Mr. Kenney is spending on a lavish tax cut for big corporations. At the same time, he's promising to cut the minimum wage for Alberta's lowest paid workers and changing overtime rules. Mr. Kenney says he will also freeze funding for healthcare and education. Freeze it. Despite the fact that we have a growing population, more patients and more kids coming into our schools every year, and that amounts to a major cut in services for us and for our families. So with that, again, by Mr. Kenney's own math, his plan means at least a 14% cut across the board. Mr. Kenney also says he's going to stop Alberta from moving our oil by rail to new markets. So I want to focus a bit on that point, because in pledging to cancel our plan to move oil by rail, Jason Kenney is stranding our oil and stranding our oil producers and sadly stranding the jobs that come with that. It is reckless and it is short-sighted and it undermines everything that he says about defending our industry. And in making that promise, he has made a big mistake as well. He included the cancelled costs for cancelling that project in his proposed budget, but he failed to book the fact that there's substantial lost revenue. So as such, there's a whopping $2.5 billion mistake at the heart of his platform. But even more fundamentally, when you step back and look at his plan, overall, it does nothing to prepare our economy and our society for a changing future. It's a compilation of failed ideas from previous decades that got Alberta into a whole lot of trouble in the first place. It is a race to the bottom that will leave Alberta overexposed to world oil prices and will do absolutely nothing to diversify our economy. In fact, it will harm our recovery, mean longer wait times, larger classrooms. And as I said earlier, it will all be combined with a return to the corruption and entitlement that for too long infected our politics. I believe the communities in Lesser Slave Lake deserve better, that we have better days ahead of us, and that if you re-elect me as your MLA, I will continue working together with you to build one Alberta that works for all Albertans, not just those at the top. An Alberta with good schools, good hospitals, and a more diversified economy that is proud of its diversity and confident and hopeful. An Alberta where everyday people like you and all the people in Lesser Slave Lake come first. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Danielle. Next is Bethany.
Give him this one. This one is so cool. Yeah. This one. That one? Great. Is it the boss one? Yeah.
Test. Good enough. Test. Good evening. I'd like to thank Treaty 8 for letting us host this event here tonight. And I'd also like to thank the Prairie Chamber of Commerce for putting on this important forum. Thank you to my opponents for putting their names forward in this important election. Despite our differences of opinion, I know we all love Lesser Slave Lake in Alberta, and I truly appreciate your sacrifice. Finally, I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. This is the most crucial election in Alberta's history, and I am deeply proud to see so many people engaged in the election. My name is Pat Rain, and I want to work for you. I want the job because I've been fortunate enough to live the Alberta advantage. And now, I want to do my part in bringing back the Alberta Advantage to the families and businesses in Lesser Slave Lake. Let me tell you a little bit about my Alberta story. I was born and I have lived my entire life in Alberta. More than 30 years ago, I started my career as a Catholic high school teacher. Eventually, I decided to follow in my father's footsteps. He worked in the logging and sawmilling business, inspiring in me a passion for forestry. 21 years ago, I put every penny I had together and I purchased a sawmill in Wabasca called Wabasca Lake Sawmills. 16 years ago, I started purchasing timberland near High Prairie, Sunset House, Snipe Lake, Triangle, and Jussard. I'm proud to say I still own some of this land today, along with 4 timber quotas in the green zone of our province. 11 years ago, I started my own crane company, which today is one of the largest single-person-owned crane companies in North America, with cranes in operation throughout Canada and the United States. I barely had a penny to my name when I started my career. I certainly didn't have any inside connections or industry secrets. What I did have, however, was a strong work ethic, a will to succeed, and a common sense government that wanted to see its citizens prosper. I know the Alberta Advantage because I've lived it. Now I want to make sure that it's alive and well for the next generation. I want to ensure that if a young person wants to start a business, or raise a family, or take over the family farm, they can do so right here in High Prairie. I'm not running in this race out of self-interest. I don't need a job. I don't want the cushy perks. I'm not interested in any fancy parties. I'm running in this race because I know what it's going to take to make life better for families and businesses in our riding, and I'm ready to get to work. For the better part of my life, I've been working to create jobs and to make life better for others. I've employed hundreds of Albertans, helping them find meaningful work and financially enabling them to start their own families and their own businesses. This cycle of prosperity is the Alberta Advantage at work. But over the past 40 years, the NDP has done everything in its power to make it disappear. They attacked our oil and gas sector with royalty reviews and emissions caps. They stood idle by while anti-Alberta activists and politicians, namely the NDP's friend and ally, Justin Trudeau, worked to landlock our oil. And they introduced a carbon tax, the largest tax increase in Alberta's history, in the middle of a recession, which has caused severe economic harm to businesses and families in our ridings. We've all seen the consequences of the NDP carbon tax, how it increased the price of everything from groceries to water to fuel, how it's pushed businesses and investment, particularly in the energy sector, out of our province and into jurisdictions where there isn't any carbon tax, such as the United States. How it costs farmers thousands of dollars just to dry their grain. I was recently in the news for a story involving a local business who had to pay $500,000 in a carbon tax bill. Can you believe that? $500,000. The bill was so high that my NDP opponent didn't even believe it. Her government staff attacked the business, suggesting the bill wasn't real. In fact, the bill was real. The Edmonton Journal even confirmed the amount and then published a story on it. This story was eye-opening for many Albertans because it proved that even the NDP has no idea how harmful its ideological policies are. That's scary for seniors on fixed incomes. That's scary for families that are trying to make ends meet. That's scary for businesses wondering how many more months they can make it before they have to close their doors permanently. NDP policies have taken a heavy toll on our province. You might hear them say you're better off with the NDP or talk about the so-called recovery, as we just heard, but that's simply fiction. Here are the facts. Calgary has the highest unemployment rate in the entire country right now. Edmonton has the third highest rate. There are 186,000 Albertans out of work at the present time. Our province is on pace for just a 1.3% economic growth in 2019. That's the lowest rate of any province in this great country of ours. This is Alberta. We care about our neighbors here, and right now our neighbors are suffering. The UCP has a strong, bold plan to change the course of our province for the better. We have released the most comprehensive policy platform of any major party in Alberta history. We will repeal the carbon tax, reignite Alberta's economy, and afford Albertans the ability to realize their full economic potential. We have a plan to create jobs that some of the country's top economists, like Dr. Jack Mintz, say will create 50,000 good jobs and grow the economy by $1.3 billion. We have a plan for our farmers and for our forest professionals. And we have a plan to build pipelines once and for all. Yes, pipelines, because that's the safest, most economic way to move oil. Thank you. Even though the NDP would have you believe, since they protest against pipelines, the Premier and some of the ministers protesting against them, and now going on this far-fetched thing of buying rail cars and trying to go that way, when we know it's a much more dangerous, expensive way to move oil. We have a plan for our farmers and all professionals, and we will get the pipelines built. Let's not forget, the NDP opposed the Northern Gateway pipeline and the Keystone XL pipeline. They put all our eggs into the Trans Mountain basket, and now the Trans Mountain pipeline is stuck in the courts. They told us the carbon tax was going to give us the so-called social license to build pipelines, but that simply hasn't happened, and it's a total failure, their policy of appeasement with Trudeau and the federal government. Albertans have been paying and paying and paying, but they've consistently gotten the short end of the stick under this NDP government, and it's time for something to change. Running in this election has been a blessing. Over the past several months, I've taken my half-ton to every corner of this riding. I've heard countless stories from people just like you. Some stories are challenging, some are sad, some are absolutely heartbreaking. The conclusion I've come to is this. This is the most important election in Alberta's history. After being in power for 40 years, it is clear the NDP can no longer be trusted to manage our great province. This election is about change, change for the better. The UCP has the plan for jobs, pipelines, and the economy. We have the right plan to get the job done for you and your family. This is Alberta. I want to make this perfectly clear. We aren't anybody's embarrassing cousin, as the NDP would like to have you believe. We are proud, hard-working Albertans. We are leaders, and we need to stand up and be counted. Thank you.
All right, thanks Pat for that. Vincent, great. Did you want to
Dante Bebendik, Vincent Rain, and Zikasru. I want to thank everybody for having me here today. I unfortunately am going to bash my counterparts because my daughter's up here and Daniel's mom's here, and we should show respect for that, and that's the way I was raised. And I want you guys to understand something. I'm not a hardcore politician. Didn't study political science. I didn't come here to tell you guys that I, did all these wonderful courses to get me in this position. I didn't. I'm an Indigenous person, as you can tell, and you're probably going to hear some things today that you may not like, but unfortunately, that's what you need to hear. How many worked on the Trans Mountain project? This gentleman did. I worked at the highest level with the Trans Mountain project. So, I mean, as much as I want to tell you guys the good things that, the pipeline will get built, I worked under the two ministers. I worked under Minister Carr, and I worked under Minister Sohi. And they reported to the Prime Minister. I met the Prime Minister. He came and actually shook my hand and patted me on the back and said, "Good job, Vincent, for creating this work that you did, working with Indigenous people along the Trans Mountain Project." The part where I'll have to say some things is that the key part to understanding Indigenous rights is to know that you own an inherent right to the land. And that's what the slave who won the project, they won it. So that's how the pipeline got quashed. They owned the land traffic rights to that water, and it was affecting their rights. Just like anybody today. Like any one of you today, if I was to say, I'm gonna build a ceremonial artifact in your backyard, and I'm just gonna do it, you're gonna wanna negotiate with me, you're gonna wanna talk to me, you're gonna wanna come to an agreement with me to understand that we're doing this in a meaningful process. Unfortunately, I know that those processes weren't met. So I can tell you for a fact that under the way the treaty system is governed, is that if I do an agreement with this gentleman here, and we're gonna build a pipeline, him and I make the agreement, I take that back to my people, it's voted like this in a referendum, and then that process is passed. So I don't know if any of you guys are aware of that. So when that process is passed, the people got to vote on the project. Unfortunately, I know this for a fact, is that this guy's calling me right now. I'll wait till you're done, sir. Let me know. Good job. So what happens is the nations haven't been consulted. The people haven't been consulted, they haven't been asked about these projects. And that's kind of where the system lies. And unfortunately, that's some of the red tape, and then that's why I'm here. So some of the nations that were along the line, further up, were a little tough to crack, let's say. They're a little tough to crack. They really didn't want to be a part of the process. They didn't want to work with the line. But they asked me, why? They asked me to go in. Yeah, seriously. They said, "Vincent, can you go meet with the nations? Can you go talk to them?" And I said, "Yes, I'll go in, I'll meet with them, I'll talk to them." And they were pretty tough. They had some pretty tough stances on what we wanted to do. Long story short, they came in. They listened to me, they talked to me, and we got this process moving a little further down the line. So what I talk about today is jobs. Right? We all want jobs, we want to create good jobs, we want to create jobs for our friends and family. Like they said some really good points. I myself, oil and gas is what took me away from a very tough life. I don't know if anybody here can also say they've gotten their food from a dump. They picked their toys from a dump, ate moldy bread. Yep, did it all. When I came to my way of life, my daughter, sitting here today, I needed to find a way to build something for her. And that's what I did. I got myself motivated. I said, you know what? This is what's going to get me out of it. And it did. Oil and gas and working as a safety advisor took me to places I've never imagined, and it bought me many jobs. Bought me many things. But that's my key speech to you guys, is to understand that, unfortunately, you know, as much as we all want to talk that we're going to do it, I know the high-level projects. I know what's holding us back. And that's the key issues, is the Indigenous rights. And that's all what I'm here to focus on. As you can tell, I mean, I'm an Indigenous person. I've worked in this way of life for a long time. I've studied this way. I've understood all the ceremonies. I practice ceremony all the time. And that's where my truth comes from. I didn't come with anything prepared. I came here to speak to you in a truthful way and give you a good understanding. And I'm not here to tell you guys what I want to do for you guys. I'm not here to pound my fist and say, this is what we're going to do. I'm saying all you guys are going to work with me within this territory, and we're going to fix things. I am good because not only I'm Indigenous, but I've worked the other side. So I understand both sides, both worlds, these two worlds. I can meet in the middle. People will listen to me. They do all the time. Look at the support I've gotten within the area. I've got thousands of people sharing my information within these territories, Indigenous people, because they believe in me. Now, if they didn't believe in me, and you know who's the main person that believes? Women. The women within my tribe believe in me. And they're supporting me. If I was not a good person, we know the women wouldn't support me. And I really appreciate Dan and his mom for being here and supporting her. And I want to honor my daughter. And I want to thank everybody. If you have any questions, like I said, I'm here to answer them. I'm here to give you as much feedback as I can and help you guys build this territory to the way it needs to be. Thank you.
Thanks, Vincent. We'll call up Suzette. Powder? Is that okay? Did you want to come up here?
Nope.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. I have to come back to follow. My speech will be truthful as well, just I'm not as comfortable speaking as Benson, so it has to be on computer.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm not a speaker by any means, so forgive me if I mess all up. I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce and the Treaty 8 people, First Peoples of the land. Follow Mr. Vincent. You guys might know me as Suzette Powder. I am also a Métis person. It's true, I do not live in this area. I'm from Camrose, but my roots are from Lesser Slave Lake and Buffalo Lake Métis settlement. My father was a Métis person that resided in this area and was taken away to residential school, so the genealogy trail has been quite profound, and it's been a search and a half, and it's led me to the Lesser Slave Lake area a couple of years ago. And when I had the opportunity to represent for Alberta Independence Party, I chose Lesser Slave Lake because I thought, you know what? This is my chance to stand up for Albertans, my chance to stand up for the people in the Treaty 8, Lesser Slave Lake area, as well as potential members of my family. I was raised by a large French-Irish family, and we are construction people. We've worked in the industry for probably about 45 years, and I've been in the industry myself for 30 plus years. I've had the opportunity to work with directional drills up in Fort McMurray, all across Alberta, Saskatchewan, BC. I'm a Class 1 driver, hydrovac operator. I get my hands dirty. I am by no means an office person or a politician, not in the least bit. I'm currently a safety officer, first aid instructor, and a respite worker for CPS children that are in foster care, especially the Indigenous children. I came to this area and I actually had quite a few people talking to me about the issues that are going on here. And like Vincent, I could point out the flaws of our government, but unfortunately, I think we all know them. So it's true my party is a separation party, but we like to use the word independence, because Alberta deserves to have a prosperous economy. We deserve to have a government that actually listens to the people, that is for the people, by the people. In this current government that we have, they have forgotten who their actual employer is. It is you, it is I, it is everybody that works and contributes to this province. There's no accountability. Sorry, I get a little bit worked up. It's hard to watch our government that we have now oppress our province and to stand there and say that they're actually fighting for us. Because in our hearts, we know they are not. They're self-serving, their interests are their own, and they stand there and lie to us, and they watch us struggle, lose our jobs, lose our houses, our children can't go to school. They talk about child poverty. I've never seen a child go to work. I've never seen a child have a job or have to worry about earning an income. Although they are raised by people that are called parents. Child poverty starts with the parents not having work, not having secure retirement, not having the jobs that are supposed to be available to them. Over 140,000 jobs we've lost in the last 4 years. That's a shame. It's not even fathomable. How can we even put those numbers in our minds? That should have never happened. They talk about the boom or the bust of the oil field. Let me tell you, we've weathered so many recessions, so many booms and busts. And this one was created. This was created by a government that thought to themselves, you know what, we're just gonna phase out fossil fuels. And I'm not saying that I'm not for renewable energies, because believe me, I am. I have no doubt that renewable energies are the way to go. But you have to have funding and money to develop those resources. And we have our fossil fuels. They might not be perfect, but they're not dirty. They're the most ethically mined oil. Fort McMurray was seeping oil out of the ground. The reclamation that happened up there returned normal ground that was festering with oil seeping out of the ground that was unusable. There was no forest, not in some areas. It was coming out of the banks. We didn't create that. Nature created that. And now it's returned. There's animals up there, there's forests, there's grounds that they can use for whatever.
Right on.
Yeah, like I'm oil filled, 30 plus. I've seen it. I was a child when I went up